Hello, welcome back to my channel. Antoinette here. I'm going to do a face on. Hopefully not going to be too visually boring for you, but the topic may be quite stimulating. So Rachel at Amethyst Ascensions, sorry, I've got my pad on my lap so you get to look at my hair. She did something, hashtag called Real Tarot Readers. It's been based on the topics of discussion that's been going around lately. I haven't really paid too much attention, but the questions which she asked I thought were fun to come along and answer anyway. And you know, I will tag her video down below as well. I'll pop it in the comments below so you can have a look and see. And while I'm doing this, if I can manage it, I will also try to show you this deck so you have something else to look at. And this deck is going to be, this is the Fantastical Creatures Tarot by Lisa Hunt and DJ Conway. You can tell I've prepped again as always. So this one's in order, so you'll just get to see the cards, whichever cards I get around to remembering to hold up for you, in order. So if we start with question 1, do you have to know all the book meanings to be a tarot reader? And if so, what book meanings? I don't think you do need to know all the book meanings to be a tarot reader. I think you just need to know a few key words to get yourself going. A tarot reader is anyone that picks up a deck and uses it to create an intuitive reading, right? So if you can see something in these cards that gives you a message, and that message happens to give you insight into something and allows you to change your course of action correctly for the right reasons, you're a tarot reader, right? I think that's like the basics of it. The little white book that comes with your basic RWS deck, which I don't have any here, not my favourite deck, but the little white book that comes in there, that is probably all you need. You could take that book to most decks and you could use it, and then you could learn what other decks and hidden meanings in the cards and imagery and artwork mean to add and infuse and enrich your way of reading tarot. There are many, many books out there. So many. I think you don't need a big, complex, complicated book. As you get more and more into tarot, you will grow your library of tarot books from the little white book, from the basic RWS type meanings, or from your Crowley Thoth book, if that's the deck that you've picked. So whatever deck you have, I think you have to have the book that goes with that to help you learn and understand that tarot system. So for that reason, I won't name a specific book, because I think you need the book that goes with the deck. Hence, the little white books are usually a good jumping off starting point for people to see if they want to get into tarot, if they understand it, if tarot is for them. And I think that could be enough. This deck, for instance, has keywords on a card. This little keyword cheat sheet might actually be enough. There is a guidebook in here as well, but this might be enough for you to get you going. I actually have no idea if that shows the right way or wrong way around when I'm doing this, so I'm sorry if it's back to front. Regarding a book, so you don't need a specific book, one pertaining to the deck that you're using, but I always recommend, as you know, I'm a journalist, so I will always recommend that you start creating a book with your meanings in it. So what you take from the books that you read, jot down some keywords, or if you just prefer to write in the book, write on the book in the margins some information for yourself so that you can keep up with what you're thinking about when it comes to those cards. Add to it, make them yours. Use the borders on your cards, write on these. Something I've only just started to do, because I have been one of those people who won't crack a spine, who won't damage something, likes to keep it all brand new and pristine, doesn't like it to look like it's been used ever. So I am slowly overcoming my own issues with that as well. Number 2, can you be an intuitive who uses the tarot cards? Can you be an intuitive who uses the tarot cards and be considered a tarot reader? Well, yeah, why not? Isn't that what we're all doing? The meanings to these cards are made up. Somebody made these meanings up. They didn't always exist. Somebody made them up. They evolve over time. Language evolves over time. Words evolve over time. So why wouldn't the meaning of the cards? Something to think about. And your meanings will evolve. What a keyword means to you when you break it down will be very different to what a keyword maybe means to me. And that will be dependent on the language in which you use. Simple fact. Do you have to be reading for others to be a real tarot reader? No, absolutely not. You can read for yourself all your life and never read for another single person. You are a tarot reader. A tarot reader is a tarot reader is a tarot reader. I don't know how simple to make that. Of course, these are all my views. These are my opinions. Everyone is welcome to their own, and I'm happy to hear other people's views and opinions. Doesn't mean that I'm going to change mine always. Mine are there. I'm open to the point to me learning is that I'm open to new information, so that I change my insights and my thoughts and opinions occasionally. I use the word occasionally because usually I have a fairly good grounding to what I'm thinking and why and my rationale behind it. And I've usually researched enough for me to be confident in what I'm doing or saying, or my convictions. Occasionally I don't. Occasionally I'm like floundering because I'm not quite sure. And I'm okay with that. When I'm floundering, that's when I'm like most open to learning and finding out more information. Do you have to be a professional reader to be considered a real tarot reader? No, of course you don't. Define the word professional. Seriously, define the word professional. What does that mean? What does the word professional mean exactly when it comes to tarot? There are different forms of tarot readers throughout the world. That's it. Nothing else to add to that one. Do you have to have a certification to be a real tarot reader? If so, who determines if you're certified? Ooh, controversial. Very controversial. So, do you need a certification? What does a certification prove? Firstly, it proves that you have learnt a form of a divination system, you've learnt some keywords, and that you are confident in giving readings, that you have given readings for yourself and for others, mostly for others, because it's usually you get measured on how many you do and the feedback that comes from other people. And you're often marked as well for pass or fail. And then that gives somebody the idea that you understand what you're doing, not that you're just giving random readings without any ethics or consideration to the words in which you use. That, for me, are some good reasons to do courses. Certification usually means that you have to be accountable for what you're doing and saying, so then you are taught boundaries, you are taught ethics. Things which I actually do agree with. I do agree that if you're going to read for others, then those things are probably important. Human beings are very vulnerable. What we say sometimes without realizing affects people deeply on a much deeper level than we will ever know, or that they even realize themselves. And we need to be able to leave people in safe spaces. Where am I going with this? So I feel that when you're giving readings for people, if you don't understand these principles or practice these principles, you can lead people into some very dangerous hot water with your readings, especially people wanting to know about, are they cheating on me? Are they thinking about me? Is there a third person in the relationship? All of these things, because what we say back to language, the language we use and the interpretation of the other person can be very, very different. Imagine if what you said to somebody meant that, in fact, this is a true story. So one of my teachers, and I've done many courses, one of my teachers had such scenario where they were asked an ambiguous question because they didn't know the background of the person, but the ambiguous question basically led them into understanding the reading as their partner's cheating on them. The result of that was actually the person went home and attempted to inflict harm, physical harm, on the person that they thought was cheating on them. So the consequences that are there from the words that we give. So we do have to have an awareness, and I think sometimes the awareness, which for some of us may be obvious, for others it isn't, and I think an element of teaching is needed. Certification, I'm still stuck with this one. Certification. So I think, yes, you have a certificate that says that you are able to do these things. Certification here in the UK was slowly being pushed about 4 or 5 years ago, because to read at certain fairs, they brought out a liability insurance, and we have to be liability insured to give readings at said fairs, or spiritual fairs, or whatever they are, the £5 tables. We have to be able to be insured, and some places started asking for £10 million liability insurance. That's a lot of money. That's a standard fee to do fairs, especially in my neck of the woods. In order to get the £10 million liability insurance, you were being asked to be registered. To be registered, you had to have a certificate. And so the snowball goes round. That wasn't my main push for doing certification courses. In fact, I already had a couple at that point. But I could see then the value behind some of what I had done and what I had learned, and felt quite lucky that I had a certificate. So should I ever want to do the fairs that people were doing, I could, because I could get the insurance. Is it a way of being governed? Yes, it is. It is a governance. Who governs you? That'll be your registering body. What you have to do to prove yourself to that registering body, the registering body will decide. Okay. I am registered or able to register with, when I'm reading for people I need to be registered. I'm able to be registered with a couple of complementary medical association style bodies, including the CMA, and there's a couple of others. I can't remember what they are, IPMH, and I think another one. And I'm able to be registered. I'm registered through those. I have certificates that register me through those. And I can practice through those. But I must also, like I would if I was any other professional in the healthcare industry doing counselling or beauty therapy or other medical professions, you have to keep up with the CPD. So you have to have a portfolio of evidence to say that you've continued learning and you've continued to grow and expand with what you've got. And I feel that may be the same case with some of that registration and governing body here in the UK, just based on what I'm watching, what I'm witnessing, and the professions from which I already come from and understand and work within. Do I agree with it, however? Yeah, obviously, on parts I do agree with it. I think that the way the tarot here is being used for self-development, for this kind of like background shadow work that we're all doing now, this counselling, this healing your inner child, I think you have to be aware of what you're doing again there. I think if we're using it to do past life readings, regression, meditations as well, I think there are elements where you do need to be accountable for what you're doing. You have to understand what you're doing and show that you're safe in your practice. What do you think with that? Do you agree? I'm not saying for every type of reading you're doing you need to do this. Maybe not for every platform that you do this on you have to have these things. But I can definitely see the benefits to it. It maybe stops you being like a predictive future psychic reader, because that's perhaps not what you'd be doing in those fields. But there's still a place for people that do that. It's a tough one. That's a tough one. Those are my thoughts. I don't have a sturdy set way. I don't have a sturdy set way. But I can talk about it till the cows come home without giving you an answer. The certificates here, the courses that I have done from well-known, reputable teachers, companies, tutors, have to be passed by those registering bodies. So the Complementary Medical Association had to look through what it was, set out some guidance boundaries, and they created what is deemed as so suitable to be a pass, what type of courses are suitable to come register with them to put students through. So those are the people then that are in charge of the CPD, the registration criteria, the bodies for registering with. Next, number 6. Do you need to know the Golden Dawn symbolism or astrology or Kabbalistic tree to be a real tarot reader? No, you don't. But if that's the system you're using, maybe you do. Depends what your system is. It will depend on what you need to know. The RWS, no, I don't think you do. The modern day Thoth, no, I don't think you do. The Attila Thoth, no, I don't think you did. Marseille, I don't think you do. So it just depends what layers you want to add. They are layers to me at the moment, but there are plenty of decks out there that are fusions and they mix things in and out. So when you're using a fusion deck, then you probably are going to want to know a little bit more about what's in the deck and what the symbols are that you're presenting to people, if it's not just pure artwork or aesthetic. Do you have to know the history of tarot to be a real tarot reader? If so, what history? Okay, this goes back to the same thing that I've just been saying, really. Whatever type of system you've picked up, you might want to know a bit about that type of history of that deck. If you're using a modern day RWS and you're going to tell people about it and its history, then you might want to do a bit of background reading into how that modern day RWS came about and where it actually generated from and the history of the deck that inspired it. You might want to know some of that. But you don't need to know the history of every single deck. You don't need to know that, the first Tarocchi came from Italy. You might want to know that if you are a history buff. So if you're a history buff, then yeah, go do some research. These are all big, deep rabbit holes, and it takes people years to know all this information. And if you're like me, right, it goes in here and it comes back out here because my brain is full with daily things, with my work, with learning for work, with other types of things that I have to know. I don't have the ability to keep all this in my head, so I have to let some stuff out. I can't just always be learning, and I think that's okay. And I think we have to give ourselves some leeway with that. Does having a smaller or larger collection determine if you're a better or worse or real tarot reader? No, of course it doesn't. You can be a tarot reader with any of those. You can have one deck, you can have 5,000 decks. I don't care. It doesn't matter. To be a tarot reader, as long as it's deemed within a tarot deck, so a deck that, well, actually no, I can't say that because the Minchiati, the Solabuska, these, I've never had these decks, I don't own them, but I understand they have more than the 78 cards, but they're still tarot in an essence. So as long as you have them, a form of tarot system, you're a tarot reader. I do not think you can be a tarot reader with an oracle deck. Now I know the word oracle defines in wide format all divinatory types of systems, but a tarot system is a 78 card system for the most part. So as long as you've got a 78 card system, then you're a tarot reader. Yeah. Did I show you that one? Do you have to read reversals to be considered a real tarot reader? No, of course you don't have to read reversals. Many professional, old school tarot readers who've been very lucky, people on the TV, people that you see reading professionally fairs, Colette Baron Reid, for instance, the Hay House readers, many do not read reversals because the original decks, I think, that predate RWS, Thoth, Pip style decks, i.e. the Marseille, didn't have reversals. That's why you can't tell if your card is upside down or not, because the reversals didn't exist. So you do not need to be able to read reversals to read tarot. You can use it as a nuance to add to your reading, and I don't disagree with people that do read reversals. I read the card both sides at the same time, so depending on how I'm feeling swayed in the reading when they're laid out will depend on which sway of the card that I probably weigh on when I'm reading. Do you have to use certain techniques or customs to be considered a real tarot reader, i.e. be gifted your first deck, shuffle a certain way, or use certain spreads or no spreads? I love that question. No, you do not have to be gifted your first deck. What a load of pompous nonsense. Honestly, I mean, yes, I was gifted a deck when I was 18, but I didn't buy myself a deck until I was, about 30. Maybe about 38 or something, I think, is when I bought my deck. So, and that's when I started reading tarot properly. The other deck I never really used much. I picked up occasionally, put down, read the book, occasionally put down. Before I bought my deck, the one that I used, the Deviant Moon, I read lots of books on tarot before I bought the deck. So no, you don't have to be gifted your first deck. Do you have to shuffle a certain way? No, you don't. You shuffle the way you want to shuffle. Shuffle for you, not for everyone else. This isn't a show. You're not in a casino. You shuffle the way you want to shuffle. You do not have to riffle and bridge shuffle. Like, to me, for me personally, that is casino shuffling. That's what you do in a show game where you're doing, I don't know, rummy, 21 cart, 21 pontoon. I don't even know what they're called. Never been to a casino, but you see them on TV, right? So, but we're not human shuffle machines. But if that brings you joy, you carry on. Do you have to split your cards a certain way? No, you don't. Do you have to use a pendulum to set your deck? No, you don't. Please don't listen to any of this. Do what fits you, what suits you. If you buy a brand new deck and you open it up and you lick your fingers and you shuffle and off you go, that's for you. Carry on. What else was in there? Do you have to use spreads or no spreads? No, you don't have to use a spread. Absolutely not. If everyone uses this, like, oh, you must have a spread, you must have assigned meanings for the cards. Some people read intuitively and they read a story. So some people will lay out a bunch of cards and they'll just keep going until they hear a stop in their head. Once they hear stop, they will have a picture in front of them and that picture will tell them a story and they can read that. And that is, to me, that's amazing. I do read like that occasionally. Sometimes I'll do it like a crossword or a word spread. So I'll lay a line and then I want to expand on this card here, so I'll go up, and I want to expand on this card here and I'll go across, and then this one here, so I'll come down, and then I might go that way, and I might come down, I might come across this way. That's how I will lay out an intuitive kind of spread, and then I'll read the story that sits within those cards as it's laid out. Sometimes I will use specific meanings. So my 3-card weekly spread, they have meanings. And and they change. And I might read the card slightly differently to the question, depending on what I want to put down, and then I'll jot it down in my book and have it there. You do not have to know the Celtic cross to do a good tarot reading for somebody. A good 3-card spread is as good as it gets, and you can read that as a sentence, or you can read that as a past, present, future, do this, don't do this, outcome, likely outcome, those sorts of things. So yeah, have fun, do what you want to do, play with it, and come up with your own systems, your own spreads, your own positions, your own pretty patterns. Just do what you want to do and see what comes up for you. Do you need to read a certain way to be considered a real tarot reader, i.e. be psychic, read with a divine communication, higher self connection, psychological? No, apparently no, you don't. I know cold card readers. They just read the card, they know 3 keywords, and that's what they read, and that's how they go. They do get an effective reading. So I've seen it happen, so I can't say that that's not effective, because it is. I like to take a moment to be quiet, be still, and to kind of tap into what I call my higher self, or my guardian angel, or my spirit guide, whatever you want to call them. And I like to just see if they speak to me or allow messages to speak to me. And this is usually when I hear song lyrics, I see things, I see images, I get like little chills, goosebumps, those sorts of things. So that's generally how I work when I'm reading properly. When I'm reading cold, when I'm just like 3-card reading for myself, I'll throw the cards down. I just wait and see if anything comes in, but I don't take that moment always. I don't sit calm, light a candle. But if I'm doing it for somebody else, then yes, I do. That is how I would read it for somebody else. I wouldn't do a cold reading personally for somebody else, because it doesn't work for me as well as I've seen other people able to do it. And it's quite a talent if you can just cold read for people. But you don't have to be medium, you don't have to be psychic in order to be able to read the cards. Can you refer to your guidebook and still be considered a real tarot reader? Absolutely, of course you can. Books are made for reading. Some of these decks, so I do have one here next to me. So I have the Serpent and Peacock. This is here for a reason. It's been designed to tell me about the artwork that comes with the cards. It's, where I might find it, where I might look it up. Some of the information in there might tell me a bit about the story of the card, because the card is completely different to anything you used to be seeing, and it explains how that card fits that set of keywords that you might not be associating. So yeah, of course you can. And if you're doing it for yourself, yes. If you're reading for somebody else, you can get cards with keywords on now, so same difference, isn't it? I don't think sitting and flipping through a book is perhaps quite so professional unless you're practicing doing readings. But if you're doing actual readings for people, there's other ways of doing this. Write on your own borders, write on your own cards, get the decks with the keywords on. I don't think you want to be putting out books at that point to do a reading for somebody else if you're doing it professionally. But if you want to check in on something because an image in that card isn't standard to that type of deck, like the Serpent Peacock, like the Bonefire Tarot, then you might want to just go and check up that particular item, in the back in the glossary, to see what it means. I think that's okay. Is reading with playing cards, Lenormand cards, oracle cards, kip cards, or any other cards besides tarot still considered a real tarot reader? Ooh. Oh, well, I did touch on this a little bit, didn't I? Is Lenormand tarot? They're not really tarot, are they? They're not tarot. They are divination type cards. They're divination. The one caveat I'm going to add to that is if you have a majors only deck. So if you're reading with the 22 cards only from the majors, that is still a tarot reader, because lots of decks originated and people were reading only with the 22 cards. Playing cards, interesting. If you're using them in the tarot sense, then yes, you can use the 56 cards to do that. Why? Because when tarot was made illegal, they hid the meanings in playing cards. So the 1 to 10 in the suits and the court cards were hidden in the playing card deck. That's where those cards come from. And the illustrated majors, I can't remember words out. The illustrated majors were removed from the deck. So you could be sat in a bar giving a tarot reading, but they wouldn't know what you're doing because it's a playing card deck. So then the meanings became hidden and ran underground. So you had to know it all off by heart. There was no images to run from. There was nothing to give you an illustrated pip. So that is something that I do know a bit about with regards to the history of tarot, but I can't tell you when that happened. And then I think that's where the Marseille might have come from. I might be wrong, but I think that's how the Marseille kind of developed on after Tarocchi. Anyway, I'm not a history buff, so I'm happy to be wrong with this one. What denotes a real tarot reader to you? Honesty, integrity, trustworthy, having some ethical boundaries, standing up for what you will and won't read for as well, knowing what you will and won't read for. I think that's really important, that with your boundaries and your ethics. Somebody who reads the cards and, gives a nice reading, makes you feel empowered at the end of it. Somebody who enjoys using 22 or 78 or maybe 56, I don't know, cards in a deck. If you're reading with a system, you're using it as tarot is meant to be used, then that is, to me, what makes you a tarot reader. These are little windows of moments, of souls, of psyche, of archetype that allow us to make decisions about, things that we can't see around us, give us insight into situations that is causing us, that one's really nice actually, that is causing us worry. I think that kind of makes a tarot reader. I don't think you have to be on YouTube. You definitely don't have to be on TikTok. You don't have to be on Instagram. You don't have to be out in a public domain to be a tarot reader. You can just do it privately in your own home. You don't have to have all the things, all the tools, or all the woo-woo. So I think that is everything I have to add to what makes a real tarot reader. I hope that hasn't been too offensive to anybody. It's a great one to open up a conversation though, isn't it? And I have heard many of these questions going around in the community, and I've seen a few people talking about this over a long period of time, to be honest. A couple of years, every so often these sort of questions do pop back up, but it's nice to see them all condensed into a video, and I thank Rochelle at Amethyst Essential for doing that. So until the next one, take care, bye bye.